Hey, my name is Kim. Welcome back to my channel. Today is another Media Monday episode, and today we're focusing on Season 2, Episode 2 of my favorite series in a long time, Yellowjackets. This episode was called Edible Complex. So this was a crazy episode, and it was one of the two that the cast of Yellowjackets said would be some of the craziest stuff you have ever seen on TV. They said that episode 2 and episode 6, I think episode 6 is called It Chooses, are going to be absolutely wild. So I absolutely loved episode 2, and I'm really looking forward to seeing episode 6. So I'm going to give you kind of a recap, some of my thoughts on the episode, and then some theories. So the episode opens with a scene of Shauna and Jackie together in the shed again. And of course, if you watched the first episode, you would remember at the end of episode 1, Shauna ate Jackie's ear, and it was a pretty shocking moment. So in this episode, Shauna and Jackie are talking. Jackie is really taunting Shauna, and you can really see how tortured Shauna is mentally in this moment. Because, of course, this isn't Jackie talking. This is Shauna talking to herself. So it makes it so much worse. She's telling her, you only are who you are because I made you into that person. Jeff only ever liked you because I made you into someone he would like. You're really seeing a lot of Shauna's feelings in this moment. Shauna is looking at the bear carcass, and she is realizing there's not very much left. There's basically little scraps on the carcass. And Jackie is taunting her, saying there's not much left. Then we flash to a scene in the cabin where all of the girls and boys are talking. They are talking about how unhealthy it is for Shauna to be outside in the shed all day, every day, how unhealthy it is mentally and physically for Shauna. Because, of course, extreme cold. In those areas of Canada, it can get up to negative 50 in the wintertime. It is very, very cold. And when I say negative 50, I'm speaking in Celsius. So very, very, very cold, very dangerous things Shauna's doing. And then we discover there's sort of a moment of comic relief amidst all this dark stuff. Someone has pooped in the pee bucket, and nobody will own up to it. Misty suggests, well, should we look and see if it's a boy poo or a girl poo? And then Ty just gets fed up and ends up taking it out. She also notices that there is a lantern missing. Akila was the last one to use it, but she says she put it back, which kind of makes me think it was probably Ty taking it in her fugue state. Because, of course, we know that's going on when she falls asleep. Then we flash back to Shauna and Jackie. Jackie cuts off a chunk of her arm and says, here, I don't need it anymore. You take it. And then Shauna looks down and realizes, of course, it wasn't Jackie who cut a chunk off of her arm. It was Shauna. She's the one holding the knife. And so that leads me to think that she's probably been eating more pieces of Jackie. Right, so then we go to Callie and Kyle. She is over at, and Callie is Shauna's daughter. Callie is over at Kyle's house. He's acting normal, like a regular teenage boy. She is super morose. She is really upset about her parents. I actually, a lot of people don't like Callie, but I actually feel really sorry for her. She just talks about how her parents are so self-involved. They don't give her any attention. That would negatively affect any teenager. Callie is a very typical teenager to me, and especially one with a mom that she's pretty sure is a murderer. I feel like her behavior is very understandable. And then, so she breaks up with Kyle and leaves. I'm sort of wondering if she does that to protect him because she knows, or she has suspicions about what her mom has done. I think she breaks up with Kyle to protect him. So then we go to Teen Van and Ty, and they are, they're sleeping. Ty isn't sleeping. Van is sleeping. She wakes up, sees the rope that ties her and Ty together. Is broken, and so she runs out to find Ty, finds her in the forest. Ty is being led by the man with no eyes, and Van tackles her just in time to stop her from going off the edge of a cliff. So, pretty surprising scene. We've seen little glimpses of the man with no eyes. We don't really know who he is yet. We know Ty saw him as a child. We know her grandma saw him. I suspect that Sammy has seen him as well, Ty's son, because Sammy had some drawings in his window that looked like the man with no eyes. So I think that it might be a genetic thing. So Yeah, very shocking scene. And then we flash forward to adult Ty. She is desperately trying to stay awake. She's pounding espresso. She is exercising, doing everything she can to stay awake. She does not want to slip back into her fugue state. She is afraid of what she might do. So it seems like she's really showing some regret for what happened to Biscuit after all. Then we go to, next is teen Natalie and teen Travis. They are continuing to hunt for Javi. And Travis gives Nat kind of crap for missing the blessing in the morning that Lottie performs on them every morning to keep them safe. Nat thinks it's all a load of crap. And Travis says something really interesting. He says, well, we're going to need more than just food if we're going to survive out there. He seems to think that they're going to need a sense of belonging and a sense of meaning, sense of purpose for them to survive, not only physically, but mentally out there. Nat then suggests that they split up. They split up and they're planning to meet back later. Then we go to adult Natalie, and she's in the compound with Lottie, and they're just talking about the treatments Lottie offers. Natalie asks what was up with the man being buried alive. Lottie insists that it's just one of the treatments that they offer. Fort Girl, who got stabbed in the hand by Nat last episode, comes and brings Lottie a smoothie. Lottie takes a sip and says, oh, did you put this ingredient in? I asked for this one. And what's really interesting is that Fort Girl looks terrified. And she's like, oh, I'll fix it. I'm so sorry. And Lottie says, oh, no, it's fine. I'll drink it. Don't worry about it. And then she throws it in the garbage as soon as Fort Girl leaves. So interesting. Lottie is portraying herself to be like a healer, like life coach type person, as I've described her before. But then if that's the case, why are some of her followers scared of her? I think there is going to be much more to the Lottie story than what we see, or than what we've seen so far. So then we move to adult Shauna, and she comes off as like she's trying to bond with Callie, her daughter. She offers to go to the mall, and she says the weirdest thing, like the most thoughtless thing. She's like, oh, do you want to go to the mall, rack up your dad's credit card debt, and make him work even harder? Like, what kind of ridiculously insensitive thing is that to say to your daughter, who is clearly still upset about finding out that you cheated on her dad, your husband? Like, why would you say that? Either she just has like no clue socially, or I just don't even know. I think she's like a bit of a sociopath and not, she can't read other people's emotions. But that was a crazy thing for her to say to me. Of course, Callie says no thanks, right? And then, so adult Misty is still trying to get help to track down Natalie. And she is trying to call Ty. Ty's not answering. Ty's busy with her own stuff at this point, as we know. But she posts a picture of a camera that was near Natalie's room at the motel and posted on, it looks like Reddit. It's their citizen detective forum. So funny. And she's like, help hacking into this. Most people say, oh, there's no point. And then Walter, who we know will be a recurring character later, comments, and he says, I might be able to help, but only if you stop shitting on my Adam Martin theories. So, and she just comments and says, stop. I have an idea too. Stop giving us wild goose chases. And it's kind of a funny exchange. Then we go back to the teen timeline, and Ty goes into the shed after Shauna comes out, finds Jackie with her makeup fully done, and it's kind of crazy, like fully clown makeup. And she comes out and confronts Shauna about it, and she says, you know, this needs to stop. We need to get rid of Jackie's body. Lottie tells her to leave her alone, says, you know, this was her best friend. I think that Lottie is really open and empathetic to Shauna's pain at this point. So Shauna says, well, we can't bury her. The ground's frozen solid. And Ty says, well, we can cremate her. And so that's what they all kind of agreed to do, even though Shauna really is upset at the thought of this. Understandably so. Up until this point, she's been talking with Jackie to kind of keep her alive in a sense. So then next, Kevin Tan, who was Natalie's best friend in high school, and they had a thing last season. We know he's a police officer. He shows up to talk to Shauna because they have found multiple texts between Adam, Shauna's boyfriend from the first season, and Shauna. And I don't know at this point if they know what the text said. But he just says, oh, we found a lot of text between you guys. And Shauna says, oh, yeah, it's just because we got into a fender bender. He was refusing to place the insurance claim and things got heated. That's all it was. Callie is listening and she jumps in and says, hey, we need to get to the mall. Let's go. And so obviously covering for her mom and trying to get Kevin Tan out of there. So Kevin Tan leaves. And then she asks Shauna, hey, why'd you lie? Why didn't you tell him that you guys had an affair? And Shauna has this BS story and she says, oh, well, I'm just really worried about people being against women. They will inevitably make it out to be something it's not. And obviously we know she's lying and gaslighting the crap out of her daughter. And Callie has this line, so you lied to be feminist then? Kind of funny. So next we have Sammy showing up at home. Ty is sleeping. She wakes up and Sammy comes in and he says he walked from school to see her. She's pretty excited, but she does call Simone to let her know. Simone says she's coming right away to get him. The next scene is Misty at work, and she just hears this really interesting guy. He's talking, he's very detail oriented. He's talking to a nurse about his mother going into the care home. She looks over and the camera just like zooms in on his shapely legs. And it's Elijah Wood, who we know will play Walter. Can't remember his last name, but very excited to see more of this character. And as he walks by, he looks at her and just gives her this little smile that just kind of makes your teenage heart flutter. Because if you were like me, Elijah Wood was huge when you were like 10, 11, 12, whatever. But absolutely loved Elijah Wood as a preteen. So I am so excited to see him in this season. She then goes to get her lunch out of the fridge, and there is a note that is titled to Misty Quigley. She opens it up and it's blank. And she's like, what in the world? Takes it home. Whatever. Next scene is teen Natalie, and we see that she's taken a pair of Javi's pants. She cuts her leg and she rubs blood all over the pants and then ties off her leg with a piece of the pants, which is interesting. I'm sure that will come up later. And she plants Javi's bloody pants somewhere and then calls Travis and tells him that she's found them. So I think, now I'm not sure what her motives are for this. I think she senses that out of hope, Travis is moving towards Lottie, and she doesn't like that because Lottie's giving him hope that Javi's alive, right? And I think she kind of does it for some selfish reasons. She wants to bring him back to her and root him in reality, I guess. I think it's also because the group is suffering because of Travis's fixation on finding his brother. He's not hunting. He's not looking for animals. He is just looking for Javi. So I'm not sure yet what Natalie's motives are, whether she's trying to pull him back to her and away from Lottie, or whether it's for the good of the group. Like, they need to hunt. They need to get food for everyone. So I guess we'll see. Okay, the next scene is really exciting because we finally get some answers about Travis's death from the first, or was it the second episode? Might have been the first episode of season 1. So as we know, Travis left Nat a note saying, tell Nat she was right. Lottie's version of events, she's at the compound talking to Natalie about this. Lottie says that she got a call from Travis saying that the darkness was back for him, or the wilderness was back for him. And so she says she drove all night to get to him. She spent the night with him. She got him to calm down. And then when she woke up, he was gone. And so she followed him to his place of work. She said that he left a note that said, tell Nat she was right. And she took the note. First off, why would she take the note? She also said that he left instructions to get into his bank account. Why would he do that? That part seems so weird to me. Anyway, she follows him to work, and she says that he set up the candles to look like the symbol. I'll put in a picture here. And he wants to get close to death so that he can talk to the darkness that they saw in the wilderness. And you may remember from season 1, Van said that she saw something out in the wilderness with them when she was close to death after being attacked by the wolves. So this is sort of plausible in some ways. And then Lottie is convinced, supposedly, by Travis to help him with, he wants to be hung from a crane until he passes out, and then he was going to press the button to lower himself down. So she says she'll do that part to keep him safe. So things go wrong, though, and the buttons get stuck. And then also Ghost of Laura Lee shows up. So creepy, but also very exciting to see Laura Lee again. And she's distracted by that. And while she's distracted by Ghost Laura Lee, he is hung to death. And she just takes off because she doesn't want to get in trouble, I guess. There are so many holes in this account of events. And something else I noticed is it wasn't very well written or acted. And everything else in this series is. So it makes me wonder if that was intentional to make us see that it's a lie or faked. Maybe. I guess we'll have to find out. Back to the present timeline. Or we are in the present timeline. Over to Ty, adult Ty's timeline. Simone comes over and they realize that Sammy's not there and his bedroom window's open. So they assume he's run off. They go to look for him, and that's that. Short scene there. And then we go back to the teen timeline, and they are preparing to cremate Jackie's body. And Akilah suggests saving her clothes. Ty says, you want to strip her naked? Like, what are you thinking? And I agree with Ty, give her some dignity in death. But Mari says, well, why can't we at least keep her jacket? Or I think it's maybe Akilah that says that, one of the two. Van says, it's worth talking about. Like, it's -50 out here likely. We need more resources. Shauna says, no one is taking Jackie's jacket. And of course we know, there were chunks carved out of Jackie's arm from earlier. We assume that Shauna's been eating them because those pieces haven't shown up anywhere else yet. And so that's why she wants her to keep the jacket on to cover her arms. Shauna then is sitting next to Jackie. Lottie comes over and she sees the marks carved out of Jackie's arm. And she looks at them and then looks at Shauna. And Shauna looks at her just like, gives her this look of a wounded dog is the best way I can describe it. She is like, it's a look of shame, a look of humiliation, just utter sadness. And Lottie just kind of like gives her a knowing, empathetic glance, and then Shauna covers it up. Then Lottie turns, takes the heart necklace, and gives it to Shauna. So the heart necklace has moved, and we know that the heart necklace ends up on Pit Girl later. So I'm curious to see who it will go to next. But I just absolutely loved the scene between Lottie and Shauna. Like, it reminds me of the scene between Ty and Shauna in the forest when Shauna tried to give herself an abortion and Ty comes out and supports her in this really fragile, devastating circumstance. And Lottie is the same. She just looks at her and I feel like she knows that Shauna has been eating chunks of Jackie, but she also understands why. Like, Shauna is trying to keep Jackie alive, and I think she thinks by consuming her, she'll forever be a part of her and she'll ever be alive in a way. And Lottie just understands all that with a glance. She is so in tune with human emotions. It's pretty cool. So that really makes me wonder, what are we going to get with adult Lottie? Because adult Lottie there's hints at her being so different. So back to the present timeline. Callie is in a bar using a fake ID, obviously, drinking with her friend. And she sees this cute guy sitting at the bar staring at her. And her friend encourages her to go talk to him. She opens up to him about her parents' about the affair her mom has had and everything going on there. Not everything, not her suspicions of her mom being a murderer, but about the affair. And so they talk a bit. Short scene. And then we go back to the past, to Shauna's, to teen Shauna, well, teen all of them. And they're about to light Jackie's funeral pyre. And Shauna takes the torch, and just before lighting it, she says, she has this like really heartbreaking speech. She goes, Jackie, I'll never have another friend like you. I don't even know where you end and I begin. I'm sorry and I love you. And honestly, I almost cried when I watched that. It was just, you can just see how devastated Shauna is. And it feels like a really accurate representation of what it's like to truly lose someone. It's just, your mind goes through so many weird things and it's hard to articulate how you're feeling, but she said so much in those few words. And then she lights the funeral pyre and Travis comes up and adds Javi's bloody pants, effectively saying goodbye to him as well. Then we go back to the present timeline. Adult Nat lays down because she has to, she's learned from, or not Simone, I keep wanting to say Simone and I don't know why. She's learned from adult Lottie that there's no way out from where they are at night, so she's going to have to spend the night and leave in the morning. So and it's funny, she goes into her room, Lottie has laid out purple clothes for her. She's trying to be like, hey, one of us. And Nat's just like, knocks him off the bed. It's not going to happen. She goes to lay down. She has a flashback to, it seems like an OD. I'm pretty sure we see Travis pacing in the background. And so I assume she's had a near-death experience. So now I am wondering, is it actually Nat? Although she is very pragmatic. I wonder if she had this theory about being able to see the darkness if you get close to death, because it seems like she's had a near-death experience. So maybe something has changed in her since being a teen. Okay, then we go to adult Misty, and she's looking at this blank note, and then she realizes, and she actually realizes this while cleaning Caligula's cage, that she can shine a light on it, and it's been written in like invisible ink or something. I'm pretty sure we had that in the 90s. I don't know. And so she reads it, and it's Walter introducing himself, and he's like, yeah, I knew you'd figure this out. You're too smart not to. And she's like, oh, yeah, I am. Like, Misty just, like, feeds on any form of flattery. But anyways, and he offers her help in her case to look for Nat. He says he's found someone who's been staying at the motel Nat was at for the last 3 months, and he's going to be interrogated the next day by the FBI, which is Walter, and asks if Misty would like to join. Now, I actually think that this could be Randy, because you remember when Shauna was going to the motel to see Nat, and Randy was staying there because his wife had kicked him out. Probably be cheaper to keep her. And so I think they're going to end up interrogating Randy unknowingly. Or it could be whatever cult member was watching Nat. Like Lottie said, she had someone watching Natalie to make sure that she didn't do anything to hurt herself after Travis's death. I don't think I mentioned that, but yeah, that happened. But I think that cult member probably would have left after they took Natalie. So I think they're going to end up interrogating Randy. So then we flash back to, it's actually Kevin Tan's timeline. So the guy in the bar turns out to be a cop, a young cop working with Kevin Tan on the Adam Martin case. And he's like, hey, I've got proof. I followed the daughter, had some drinks with her in the bar, and she admitted to me that her mom was having an affair. Let's bring her in. Kevin says, no, Shauna's too smart. We need more than that. I feel like this younger police officer is going to be the key to the case against Shauna completely unraveling. Spending time with a minor in a bar, going gung-ho on Shauna too soon and blowing up the case. I feel like that'll be the key here, and that's the purpose for Callie's whole storyline here. And then we are back to the teen timeline. Nat and Travis finally have sex. I think this is the first time that they've done it because he's been kind of like pushing her away up until now. So they finally do it. Nat's trying to cover up the cut on her leg, but she is successful. But it's a weird scene because Travis keeps picturing Lottie, and Lottie is like shining in bright light. I think this goes to show that she is getting into his head. I also think it's foreshadowing that there's going to be a love triangle between the three of them. Something's going to happen. But I think it's to show that she's getting in his head. Meanwhile, we get like a POV of some kind of force moving through the forest, and it knocks over a big pile of snow onto Jackie's funeral pyre. And it puts out the fire mostly, but it leaves some coals kind of burning. And so we'll see what happens there in a little bit. But this is sort of shows how in the first season, remember when they did the seance in the attic, and there's a force that blows through the window, and Lottie looks, sees, and screams, and it goes into her, and then she starts speaking in French and so on. I think that is foreshadowing of this happening. There's so many little things that I'm realizing now happened in season 1, and I was like, oh, it seems kind of odd. It's a little out of place. They ended up being foreshadowing for things that have happened in season 2, and I'll talk about those in a little bit. All right, just a couple scenes left. So Simone and adult Ty are looking for Sammy. They're out driving, and Simone gets a call from the school saying that Sammy has been waiting at school for 2 hours to be picked up. And so she gets off the phone. She turns to Ty and says, you need help. I'm not going to let you be a mother to him while you're going through this. And then Ty is like staring at Simone and driving, and then we see her eyes move like this, and then move back, and then move again, and then there's a car drives right to the side of them. So I think Ty slipped into a fugue state in that moment of extreme stress and caused the car accident to happen. And we'll see what happens with Simone next week. We did see in a preview her all bandaged up with like a bloody head wound. So we'll see what happens. Also, I'm thinking now about how in the very first episode of season 1, remember how Teen Ty tripped Allie and broke her leg, and she said it was an accident, didn't understand how it could have happened, but it seemed so cold and calculated at the time. I am wondering, now that we've seen that Ty can slip into her fugue state while awake, if maybe she was in her fugue state then, and it came out and attacked Allie that way. Something to ponder. All right, the final episode. Oh my gosh, like craziest ending I've ever seen in a show, besides the very ending of Dexter season 4 when he discovers Rita in the bathtub. Anyways, spoiler alert if you were watching Dexter at the moment. But okay, so everyone wakes up and they're sniffing and they're like, what is that? Like everyone gets up at the same time. What's interesting is Ty jumps up and says, we have to go, and runs out. I think Ty's in her fugue state at this moment. They all go outside, like they don't even bother to put on shoes. They go out in their socks. And they discover Jackie's body perfectly cooked on the funeral pyre. They all gather around and look at it. And we start to see back and forth between what they're seeing and this beautiful like feast. I'll put in a picture. It's like a Roman feast. Everyone's wearing robes, have like golden hair pieces, and they have this lush feast with like different roasted meats, fruits. Like it's beautiful. And then Shauna looks down, she touches her belly, and then she looks up and says she wants us to. So we're kind of unclear whether she's talking about her baby, because if you think back to season 1, Shauna, when they were up in the attic, before Shauna had told everyone she was pregnant, I believe. Yeah, it was before then. Lottie turned to her after the force had gone into her and says, it's inside you already. So does Shauna's baby have some kind of like evil in it from being out in the forest and developing in the wilderness? And that's also sort of, if you think about what she said to Jeff in season 1 before they had sex, she says, if you inside me, then I'll raise the baby to be a killing machine that will eventually hunt you down. Could be foreshadowing. Anyways, so the other option is that it could be Jackie she's talking about, because at the very beginning of this episode, Jackie's taunting her, cutting parts off herself, like Ghost Jackie, and saying, I don't need them anymore. You're hungry, you take them. So she could either be talking about Jackie, or she could be talking about the baby. I don't know yet. And then, so Shauna's the first to cut off a chunk, and then they all just tear into her, and it just flashes back and forth between them eating at this feast, and quick flashes of them eating Jackie as well. It's a really amazingly well done scene. Coach Ben is watching, and he just kind of inches backwards on his crutch, and the look on his face, he's like, holy crap. It's like he knows he's next, right? And he closes the door, and the episode ends. So I feel like this scene is kind of done. Like, we know they're hungry at this point. They don't have a lot of food left, and they've been living off of small rations. But I don't feel like they were as desperate as I expected them to be before they resorted to cannibalism. And I also expected there to be some sort of moral dilemma before they all jumped in. Kind of like if you've ever seen the movie Alive. They really debated it heavily before they ended up eating their dead friends. But I think that this is also done intentionally, and all of them coming out at the same time, to show their animalistic natures and show that they're kind of slowly succumbing to their animalistic natures. And you remember in the first season, Ben says, well, wolves can kill anything if the pack's big enough. There's been a lot of references to the girls being like wolves, a pack of wolves and a soccer team, that they're the same. They hunted Pit Girl the same way a wolf would in the very first episode, so it's interesting. They all come outside at the same time, they all look, and they tear into her, like ripping her apart with their hands. So I think that's what's meant to be shown there. Next week's episode is supposed to be, it's called Digestif, which is the name for a drink that you take after eating a large meal to help you digest. So I think we're going to see a lot of their thoughts on what they did afterwards. And in the preview for next week's episode, Nat is saying, I'm really sorry for what we did. And then we see, it looks like an elk or a moose coming upon her, and she shoots it. So I'm hoping they will have other food for the rest of the winter. I think they'll end up eating the moose or elk or whatever it was for the rest of the winter. Spring and summer will unfold as usual, and then things will get really, really dark next winter. So, on to a couple of theories and ideas that I have. So, some major foreshadowing that I noticed from season 1. Remember when Ty and Simone are on their way home from the psychologist with Sammy, and Ty has to brake really hard and almost hits a cyclist, and you're kind of wondering, like, what was the point of that? Showing that she's distracted, or foreshadowing for the crash that happens in season 2, episode 2, with Simone in the car. That's what I think. Another thing, on Doom Coming, when they're all chasing Travis and they think he's a stag, Shauna has the knife to him, and she's seeing him as a deer. And Lottie turns to her and says, "It wants us to." And this is what Shauna says before everyone digs into Jackie at the end of season 2, episode 2. So I found that really interesting. She wants us to. It wants us to. Yeah, foreshadowing for sure. Also, like I mentioned, Lottie turning to Shauna when they're doing the seance in season 1 and saying it's inside you already. And then at the end of season 2, episode 2, Shauna touches her belly and says she wants us to. I kind of think that Shauna was talking about the baby when she says she wants us to. Another thing, if you remember in season 1, when Shauna is having the weird baby chicken dream, I think that's foreshadowing to this big feast that they have. Just seeing things not as they actually are, and like flashing back and forth between reality and what's happening. So found that interesting, because otherwise it's like, why was that scene included? Shauna giving birth to a roast chicken and eating it. Yes, it shows that they're really hungry, but I think it was also to prepare us for the feast that was coming up in season 2, episode 2. Lastly, you may remember that in the Doom Coming episode, Jackie was the only one who wasn't dosed with the shrooms. And after they tried to hunt Travis down, they were stopped by Natalie and Jackie. She was the one the next day who was like, "What the fuck is wrong with all of you?" Like, she is trying to, she's trying to get them to face the reality of what they almost did that night. And they're just like, leave us alone sort of thing. And they retaliate against her by kicking her out of the cabin, and then she ends up dying. Interesting that Coach was the only one who didn't participate in the cannibalism at the end of season 2, episode 2. I feel like he's going to be the outsider, and he's going to be the one who's like, "What the hell did you all do?" I feel like he is going to be pushed outside of the group even more. I feel like he might end up the same fate as Jackie. We'll see. So I think that's all I have for season 2, episode 2, Edible Complex. What an episode. Holy crap. Did not expect that much action so fast. I am so looking forward to next week's episode, Digestive, to see how everyone handles what they did. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.